Hi, I'm Valerie DiMartino, Senior Product Marketing Manager for SD-WAN at Citrix, and I'll be your moderator for today's webcast. Our topic and focus today is a look at how healthcare customers are deploying Citrix SD-WAN. I've invited a couple of experts in healthcare networking to join me in this panel-styled discussion. Howard Strickland is Senior Manager of Networking for Sales Engineering. Howard has over 30 years of enterprise IT experience, with almost 25 years focused on network and security infrastructure, and the last 10 years as a systems engineer focused on the SD-WAN and application performance technologies. Also joining me today is Ryan Salinas. Ryan has spent 7 years as a network administrator for PruittHealth, a regional healthcare company in Atlanta, using different business lines to partner in recovery, care, and comfort of patients throughout the South. PruittHealth decided early on to adopt Citrix's WAN optimization technology and later Citrix SD-WAN virtualization technology. Ryan has been designing, implementing, and tuning both since the projects began and has recently wrapped up 100+ branch deployment of the SD-WAN virtualization technology. During today's webinar, we'll discuss how digital transformation is reshaping the healthcare industry, network challenges in healthcare, as being in a distributed organization means connectivity now plays a more prominent role in healthcare IT, why you should look at SD-WAN for healthcare, a Citrix SD-WAN overview, the user experience, security, and then we'll have a couple of case studies, first being PruittHealth, and then we'll move on to Northside Hospital. The success of an enterprise's digital transformation is highly dependent on applications that are shifting to the cloud. If you think about a healthcare organization, they rely on Epic or similar systems for EMR. Some of these business apps are moving to the cloud, and some of the new ones may be delivered natively as SaaS even. The average enterprise has hundreds of apps in use. Many of them are SaaS-based. And in the case of large enterprises, there might even be over 1,000 apps in use. One interesting proof point about mission-critical apps moving to the cloud that 451 Research has noted is that 59% of businesses run these apps on IaaS platforms. So Howard, the healthcare landscape has a unique set of challenges, many of which can plague users and the IT experience alike. Why is that, and why are traditional WANs in today's networks not up to par?
One of the things we've had an opportunity to do at Citrix is to sit down with various healthcare providers, many of them actual Citrix customers, and talk about their business and technology challenges. As you were saying, the healthcare industry is embarking upon digital transformation, responding to the business needs that are reshaping every part of their industry. All the while, these organizations are moving from centralized local data centers to fully distributed and cloud-enabled models. Whether supporting a healthcare provider with multiple large hospitals, potentially hundreds of remote locations, to urgent care and long-care term facilities, there are common themes. One is the need to support an ever-increasing number of services, applications in a distributed model while still providing the necessary security and compliancy to meet things like HIPAA and PCI compliancy. The staffing dynamics are changing. Roaming physicians, clinicians, and even the support office staff. Supporting remote services like telemedicine and the remote billing insurance services. Most of the healthcare companies we speak with are growing, either organically or by acquisitions. It's not that things have been static with IT by any means. In fact, the rate of technology change has become more like a sprint than a marathon. The healthcare industry has actively embraced technologies to support these challenges, often relying on Citrix virtual app and desktops to enable consolidation of systems, applications, as well as expediting the onboarding of new applications, users, and business units. All too often, what we're seeing is the wide area network is the challenge. The current WANs are becoming more and more inflexible and difficult to manage. Provisioning time for new circuits can be untimely, plus the redundancy and the reliability still not meet this always available business requirement. Simply adding additional circuits, providers, and more bandwidth does not address the real issues. All the while, this can be very costly.
So, Howard, the healthcare industry seems to be ramping up adoption of SD-WAN as a result. And in fact, IDC research predicts a 40% compound annual growth rate for the technology over the next 5 years, estimating that the market will actually hit the $4.5 billion mark by 2022. What are some of the factors you think are driving the importance of SD-WAN in the healthcare industry right now?
This is where Citrix SD-WAN can help, providing an SD-WAN architecture that is highly resilient, robust, and secure. By implementing SD-WAN, a healthcare organization can immediately increase the network reliability, assuring application performance and access to critical information, whether on-prem or potentially hosted in the cloud. Another benefit is SD-WAN can allow faster onboarding in new facilities by making use of local internet access like cable, DSL, and even wireless LTE. This can prevent not having to wait on the traditional carrier provisioning. This allows for a better overall availability and a more cost-effective way to add more bandwidth. This often results in immediate improvement in availability and performance by simply making use of existing backup links.
Let's take a 30,000-foot view now of Citrix SD-WAN and why it's an application-centric WAN. What are some of the factors that drive application performance?
Many IT organizations have done a great job of providing the best possible connectivity given the independent technologies. Let's take WAN optimization for squeezing as much bandwidth through a single link as possible. Route and path control to make use of the multiple WAN links, typically in an active passive or some type of limited active passive functionality. And add to that, the implementing of firewalls provides security at the branch locations. The real challenge is when implemented independently, these can be very difficult to manage and support and troubleshoot. SD-WAN, it simplifies this enterprise WAN by consolidating these functions under a management platform or orchestrator and adding the additional intelligence and flexibility to the path and route control technologies. More specifically, if we'll take a look at Citrix SD-WAN, there's some key differentiators in the way we approach SD-WAN. It's no longer sufficient to simply route traffic down individual links and hope for the best. There's a real need for intelligence in how the applications utilize the WAN components that make up what we're defining as a software-defined WAN. Citrix SD-WAN ensures the highest quality application experience through a unique set of network capabilities. At the core of this is a packet-based approach to utilizing the wide area network, not flow or session-based. The packet-based approach generates real-time feedback on the health of each WAN circuit unidirectionally. This is accomplished by utilizing every packet that is transmitted on a WAN path to measure and communicate the health of the network, creating a real-time feedback loop. This allows us to transmit every packet on the optimal performing link in real time. This packet-based approach also allows for several unique features. First is the real-time aggregation of bandwidth, even when using disparate WAN transports. This allows for a single flow to span multiple WAN links. Another feature being the ability to selectively duplicate traffic down multiple paths for applications that are sensitive to loss and jitter, especially real-time applications like voice over IP. This also enables for what we call dual-ended quality of service. The real-time feedback loop on the WAN has visibility to understand if the last mile on the receiving end is congested. This allows transmitting sites to back off locally as not to oversubscribe the far end, generating random loss and creating performance and quality issues. Citrix WAN can adapt to brownouts and link failures literally in milliseconds. This eliminates the impact of degraded WAN circuits and even a total link failure. We actually have a customer that has such faith in this technology that when they've been doing demonstrations for us, customer reference calls, they've actually been known to unplug their MPLS link to the point of showing that they have the confidence in the product that you can fail over in real time with no issues. All in all, this results in a reliable and consistent network, providing for an exceptional end-user experience.
Howard, one of the unique benefits is that Citrix SD-WAN is HDX aware. What does that mean if an organization is running Citrix virtual apps and desktops?
The healthcare industry has been a long-time adopter of the Citrix virtual desktop and application technologies. The challenge with traditional quality of service and other SD-WAN products is seeing inside of the packets transporting the virtual sessions. With Citrix SD-WAN, we're able to see inside of the Citrix HDX protocol. This provides for granular awareness and control of the individual streams and channels supporting these virtual sessions. This allows us to provide the same high level of quality of service and application experience across the virtual sessions as we do with native network traffic. Let's take, for example, in a virtual session, things like audio, display, and input actions, keyboard and mouse movements. These are critical to the end user experience. But if all you see is a single port, things like printing and file transfers can consume the bandwidth and have an impact on the end user experience. Since we can see inside the actual channels, we're able to guarantee the necessary level of performance for these critical functions. Along with guaranteeing the performance for the HDX session, the other benefit is understanding what is happening in real time inside of these sessions. We provide visibility into the session performance through HDX QoE, or quality of experience. This is a score-based metric that utilizes latency, loss, jitter, available bandwidth, and congestion to report and alert on possible performance issues. It also enables, by using the HDX quality of experience dashboard view, to quickly begin digging into performance issues, providing a faster resolution for the end users.
And Howard, the Citrix approach is really unique because it combines the importance of the user experience with the flexibility for cloud choice and with security. How is that really key for driving digital transformation in networking?
Digital transformation, it's becoming a very broadly used term. In a recent conversation with several other networking professionals, I commented that, to me, from the networking point of view, digital transformation, it simply means that we need to be able to expect and accommodate that our applications, data, and users can simply reside anywhere. And applications were traditionally hosted in data centers, and in many cases still are. We've been talking about how Citrix SD-WAN can benefit this distributed networking model. But it's becoming equally, if not more important, in how SD-WAN helps optimize cloud services, as most healthcare organizations are either becoming cloud dependent or wanting to make sure they are prepared for the integration of cloud services. One of the general recommendations that we see from cloud service providers is that we break out traffic to the cloud locally, and basically not backhaul it to the data center. We provide several options to help simplify and optimize a cloud experience through a secure breakout. For SaaS users, software as a service, we allow for a secure breakout directly to the internet, in many cases only for the SaaS-based traffic. Additionally, there's an option to peer with the Citrix Cloud Direct service for an even more direct peering experience. For customers who are hosting their applications in the cloud, we allow the option to place a virtual Citrix SD-WAN appliance in the cloud. This allows for all the benefits of the Citrix SD-WAN technology for the highly resilient and application-optimized experience. But we can't forget that even reliable internet access is now a requirement in business, with our ability to apply security and route policies to over 4,500 predefined applications. Along with our integrated firewall and security partnerships, we can provide the necessary options to secure any internet breakout from any remote facility.
So Microsoft has published a set of Office 365 network connectivity principles to ensure an optimal user experience for workers at branch offices. And Citrix SD-WAN has been independently tested and qualified by Microsoft in their Works with Office 365 program. We're actually one of the first, and they will be announcing that at Ignite, which is their customer event in the early November timeframe. What does this mean, Howard, for healthcare organizations adopting Office 365, and how does the integration work?
Citrix has partnered with Microsoft to provide the best Office 365 experience possible, allowing for a simplified direct access to the nearest Office 365 point of presence. Microsoft published a document on the network connectivity principles for O365. One of Microsoft's recommendations is sending the Office 365 traffic directly from the branch to the internet instead of backhauling to the data center. With our API integration with Office 365, and the application-aware secure breakout, This allows Citrix to precisely discover which point of presence or front door provides the fastest response and securely steer the Office 365 traffic accordingly. With over 150 edge sites, this places the majority of the world's population within a reasonable 30 milliseconds of latency from an Office 365 point of presence. A key part of the solution is based around Microsoft's recommendation for local DNS. Citrix SD-WAN makes it easy to obtain DNS resolution from the local ISP of the remote location, thereby associating the location with its nearest Office 365 point of presence, potentially avoiding latency of going back to an Office 365 point of presence that may have been associated with a distant data center. A key point is that we have documented the performance gains from actual customers. File overloads 2 to 5 times faster, downloads 3 to 10. In general, just overall faster document access. The other key to discuss is kind of the improvement in and around real-time services like Skype and Teams.
And Howard, I just want to say that one of our customers actually saw an 80% improvement by just optimizing and going to a local POP. So it's been phenomenal, and those numbers are actually Microsoft metrics that they have provided.
That is correct, and it's been consistent that we've seen significant performance gains from every customer that has implemented, even if that would use the term have tested this. They've all been able to document significant performance gains. Now specifically, let's look at how Citrix WAN helps Office 365 when the applications are virtualized and hosted from the data center. The SD-WAN appliance in the data center provides the hosted Office 365 with direct internet access to the nearest POP or front door, again, guaranteeing optimal performance from the data center. Additionally, Office 365 is being delivered via the HDX technologies of the ICA protocol, and with SD-WAN providing quality of service and reliability, this provides an overall exceptional end-user experience with one real occasional challenge. The challenge is with the real-time applications like Teams. Without Citrix SD-WAN, the real-time traffic is backhauled via the virtual session to the data center and then delivered to Microsoft. This increases the number of hops and adds additional latency. With our SD-WAN, when the appliance in the remote office sees the Teams traffic, it identifies the traffic, can categorize it via the application qualification, and it securely steers it directly to the cloud. Again, avoiding the unnecessary network hops that can result in latency and potentially quality issues.
So I think the one thing that's at top of mind for every healthcare IT professional is security. And when it comes to SD-WAN security, all too often companies approach it as a separate project. We actually see security as a critical pillar for a successful digital transformation. And the Tally Group recently released its top 3 SD-WAN security considerations, which Citrix SD-WAN meets and exceeds. Howard, how can businesses extract the maximum performance out of their SD-WAN while ensuring that it continues to provide strong protection of users, apps, and data at branches, data centers, and clouds against the ever-increasing number of multi-vector cyber threats?
Whether your applications reside in your data center or potentially as infrastructure in a cloud data center, SaaS, what we speak of as a hybrid or potentially a multi-hybrid cloud environment, we have you protected with a comprehensive security process that's backed with automation. In the remote office, we provide firewall capabilities with a centrally managed ICSA certified firewall on all the appliances and the option to host a virtual next-gen firewall directly on the SD-WAN 1100 series appliances. Our Cloud Direct service, as I mentioned earlier, is very secure. It runs over a private network, which is inherently secure. And when we break out internet traffic, in addition to the firewall options, we have a number of partners who provide cloud-based security like Zscaler, Palo Alto, and Symantec. And we don't simply just integrate with these solutions. In fact, we use their APIs to synchronize with their management systems. This makes setting up the cloud security just a simple few clicks and fully automated.
So Howard, SD-WAN Orchestrator is a next-gen SD-WAN management platform that helps enterprises centrally manage and monitor their WAN. Can you tell the audience what some of the capabilities are that it offers, and does the networking IT team have to manage it themselves?
So at the center of any SD-WAN solution is the management platform. Citrix SD-WAN Orchestrator is a cloud-based solution offered from the Citrix Cloud that can be utilized instead of the current on-prem SD-WAN center. Both Citrix SD-WAN Orchestrator and Center provide a simple, flexible, and automated approach to managing the SD-WAN environment. Orchestrator makes a fast deployment a reality for the managed service providers as well for our enterprise customers who embrace the self-managed approach. With Orchestrator and SD-WAN, rapid yet consistent setup and deployment are a reality. By utilizing a policy-based approach, we help guarantee the configuration and security consistency throughout the network. This provides for zero-touch deployment of appliances as well as ease of integration of cloud services, including Office 365. It also provides for simple integration for partners like Palo Alto and Zscaler. Included are role-based controls. These help address the multi-user and multi-tenancy requirements of users and service providers alike. In addition to the centralized management, the strength of the monitoring functions need to be discussed. We allow granular real-time historical visibility into the WAN conditions, as well as site, application, and user issues, simply providing visibility across the entire wide area network. Again, whether you choose to implement this yourself or whether you choose to have a service provider assist, a platform like the SD-WAN Orchestrator or Center is there to help ensure a successful SD-WAN deployment.
So now we're going to speak with one of our large healthcare customers about how they're using SD-WAN. Ryan, could you start by telling us a little bit about PruittHealth?
Thanks, Valerie. The company has been serving and growing in the South for 50 years, and what started as Tacoma Nursing Center and a small family-owned pharmacy has expanded into over 90 skilled nursing facilities with an additional 100-plus business units that include hospice, home care, pharmaceutical, medical supply, and more. In addition to long-term care and assisted living, we also provide rehab with post-acute care.
And you've been a Citrix customer for quite a while. Can you tell us what your business critical apps are and what challenges you were experiencing with them before deploying SD-WAN?
Certainly. We use several homegrown apps. Critical are Cassandra, Framework, Microsoft Office 365, Teams, and Matrix Care. As far as challenges go, we honestly lacked adequate reliability and bandwidth connecting our branches back to the data center. And despite being a Citrix shop, benefiting from most of our 16,000 partners primarily using Citrix for their computing, the existing circuits just weren't going to be enough as we brought more and more of their workflow to the private cloud. We saw PDPM on the immediate horizon and the business picked Matrix Care as our EMR. And this is exactly what we needed to move forward with a network overhaul with SD-WAN at its heart.
And what were you really looking to achieve, Ryan, with a software-defined WAN solution?
Sure. We've seen more for less thanks to Citrix SD-WAN. We've saved around $1 million on carrier charges alone. PruittHealth, we saw true bandwidth aggregation throughout the enterprise and not just load balancing. And so a little bit about our setup. In our skilled nursing environments, we provided internet access for guests and residents, and we just segregated that traffic out. But many of our apps don't require access to the internet, and having Citrix SD-WAN picking the best path from any of our circuits, which now included broadband and our DIAs, that really made a big difference in keeping our partners running at the best possible speeds while drastically reducing the downtime.
Yeah, so you've seen a lot of benefits from, fewer outages, and less downtime, better call quality, all that, better access of your EMR application, correct?
Through and through, absolutely.
Yep. And so what are your initiatives around SaaS, including EMR and Office 365?
Matrix care is being used at so many levels of our organization. It became the network team's #1 priority. It has to work, period. And our aggressive rollout is nearing its end with all our business units and many departments and corporate using it daily. So next steps for us are improving its performance wherever we can. And O365 is no different. We'll be looking at Citrix's APIs to get that closest point of presence, and some other SD-WAN features we want to use include that HDX level tuning and reporting, which we think will make Matrix Care and O365 really hum. And we're also really interested in taking advantage of the partnerships Citrix has built with Palo Alto.
And so, Ryan, can you tell the audience what advice you have for them, for other healthcare organizations that are listening to you and looking at SD-WAN potentially?
Yeah, I think some of what I'll say here is very obvious, but you're going to want to lab it out. You're going to want to get in the lab and test for all directions of traffic. You might find some surprises in your own network like we did, and so fully understanding that will help you take into account what licensing you're going to need, and so on. We found you're really going to want to consider how you deploy your SD-WAN in terms of using fail-to-wire inline mode. I really strongly suggest you'll put that on your primary circuit. But gateway mode takes a little planning out. We ended up needing to use policy-based routing, port forwarding, and so on. So again, can't stress it enough. Make sure to get in the lab and check what's going on as you can. But another thing that I've found throughout this deployment was you need to use Citrix team resources to help tweak and tune that deployment to be exactly what your organization requires for growth. They are not only experienced and resourceful, but they take ownership of any given problem. So if you're already delivering apps and desktops via Citrix, it just makes perfect sense to also use Citrix to combine WAN ops and SD-WAN.
And what's in the future for your team at PruittHealth with Citrix?
Growth. Citrix SD-WAN and WAN ops and more are enabling our partners to work consistently and faster. The business is more free to move rapidly for acquisitions and keeping patient data secure the whole time. PruittHealth is looking into the zero-touch deployment option down the road with future hardware refreshes. And we have virtually unlimited options for how we connect now, so that flexibility gives us that consistent connectivity even to the most remote of locations. We see a long partnership with Citrix ahead.
Great, thank you so much. And then we're going to talk about Northside Hospital next. We had them live at our customer event back in May, but right now I'm going to have Howard be the expert on talking about Northside. So Northside Hospital is another one of our SD-WAN healthcare customers. They're a network of hospitals and medical facilities in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and they're known for delivering more children than any other hospital in the U.S. And currently they have 150 sites and 15,000 employees. Howard, what challenges was Northside experiencing that led them to look at an SD-WAN solution? And since deploying Citrix SD-WAN, what benefits have they seen?
When Northside began talking with Citrix, they openly acknowledged, kind of like Ryan just did, that they were struggling with the current network meeting the business needs. The WAN lacked redundancy at the branch locations. They had implemented the available router-based solutions, but as you'd expect, failover still caused a noticeable outage. Additionally, sometimes it simply just didn't work. They were experiencing quality issues with the EMR systems and voice over IP. EMR for Northside is delivered via the Citrix virtual app and desktop, but they were experiencing performance issues for a couple of reasons. Primarily, it was around the fact that their WAN had limitations, preventing them from being able to give appropriate prioritization to the necessary application flows, like the EMR. And as with most healthcare organizations, they simply needed more bandwidth. So why Citrix SD-WAN? The subsequent failover was a significant technical advantage. Link failovers no longer have an impact on critical applications like voice over IP and the EMR system. They're also reaping the benefit of better visibility into network issues. They are no longer impacted by brownouts or network blips and have gained additional visibility into the source of these issues. The overall end-user experience has improved simply by leveraging our advanced QoS. This is including the ability to provide QoS for the ICA traffic, again, critical because it actually is the source of their EMR. As to the benefits of SD-WAN, there are tangible benefits that Northside has observed. In many cases, they were able to see the benefits of complete redundancy and resiliency almost immediately by utilizing existing network infrastructure and utilizing the backup circuits that previously just sat there idle. This resulted in an immediate increase in bandwidth as well as resiliency. For locations needing more bandwidth, they're now utilizing commodity internet like business-grade cable, providing the necessary bandwidth at a fraction of the cost as traditional circuits. In many locations, they've even chosen to eliminate the traditional wide area network circuits. They have now started provisioning the secure internet breakout from the local remote locations. This means they no longer have to burden the WAN with backhauling user-based internet traffic. Although not the initial driver, documented cost savings was key. Their existing WAN solution, it was costly, from an upfront CapEx as well as to an ongoing OpEx cost. The Citrix SD-WAN solution presented almost an immediate return on investment, cutting the upfront cost by 65% and the overall operating costs by 80%. As they would tell you, for the doctors, this was key because most of these remote facilities actually fund the technologies. So with this, they've had a very happy experience, both performance as well as cost from the remote users.
And this is not unique to that customer. We've seen time and again cost savings well up into the above 50% area.
Yeah, that's very true. It's interesting. A lot of customers will start with the concept of cost savings as being a key driver, but quite often what we see is the redundancy and the resiliency take a bigger play in their decision process. And the after effect is almost the fact that they begin to save a substantial amount of money because they begin to get this reliability that they can use these commodity links and still provide a true quality of service delivery of their applications.
Yep, absolutely. So Howard, you've got some next steps for everyone to pay attention to?
Yeah, kind of in line with some of the things Ryan was saying. Take time to clearly understand the business requirements, both current and future. What's the direction to the cloud, SaaS, things like that, so that you understand what technologies are going to be key within your SD-WAN solution. You know, we talk about documenting the required features. This kind of seems second nature, but so many people overlook this. Whether you're doing an RFI or whether you just need to create a product matrix, it's very important that you do actually take a look and rank not only the features, but how they function within that provider. You know, what are their real failover times and things like that. I always tell people, request a live demonstration of the technology. We can bring in a demo kit on site. We can also provide a demo lab environment. You know, one of the advantages of the demo lab is that after we go through the initial presentation, we can actually allow the customer to use it for a couple of days so they can get that real hands-on experience. The other part coming from my background is kind of key to me is make sure your SD-WAN provider is taking time to understand your network. As Ryan said, I think most of us in our career have inherited networks. I don't think there's a lot of us that have organically grown them from the infant state to what they are now. And so there are home gremlins. They should take time to ask, understand it, and review what you're doing. If they're painting a picture that it's just a simple integration, it will be, but they need to understand your network. The other thing you talked on a little earlier, Valerie, was determining how the business, your company, wants to consume SD-WAN. Whether you want it to be a self-managed option, probably the one we're seeing the biggest growth in is I'm going to call it a third-party service provider. And what I mean by that is it's a service provider that doesn't have a direct loyalty to anybody providing the WAN transports, Or in a lot of cases now, we do see customers who have good relationships with one of the major service providers, and they'll have them deliver the SD-WAN technology. We have partnerships at all levels, so it's really up to you to make that determination, but it helps earlier on if you can make that in the process. And most importantly, I stress this, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Simply stated, not all SD-WANs are created equal. They're very different, providing very different features and functions, and you really need to understand and balance those business technical requirements of your organization with what the technologies can actually provide.
So we've gathered up a couple of key resources for you to go look at, and you can see the link at the bottom will take you to actually all three of them. So we have a paper on, it's really vendor agnostic on finding the best WAN edge solution for your enterprise. The middle one is really for healthcare specifically, so SD-WAN in the healthcare industry. And the last one is around Office 365 connectivity and performance. And I also wanted to mention, I did forget to put on here, if you guys wanted to go listen to the Synergy session with Northside Hospital, you can listen to them speak directly. That is on YouTube, and you can look up Citrix SYN146. And I think we have come to the end of our presentation. I'd like to thank Howard and Ryan for sharing their knowledge and insight. Excellent job today. And we can now take some questions from the audience. Okay, before we get to the questions, we have a quick poll to send to you guys to fill out. I'm going to send it again here. Okay, so how do you plan on implementing SD-WAN? Do you plan on using a managed service provider? Do you have staff to do it on your own, DIY, or are you not sure yet? Give the audience a minute to reply.
Okay, looks like we got a couple of replies coming in, Valerie.
Okay, there we go.
A lot of people are not sure.
Responding. Took a second there. Yeah, I'm going to release the results. Looks like a lot of people are undecided at this time, so that's perfectly fine. Again, Citrix offers both options, so when you do get ready to talk to us, we'll be able to help you with that. All right, so we'll move on to the questions. First question is, I wonder what % of those Office 365 performance gains come from just enabling local internet breakout versus flowing the Office 365 traffic through the Citrix SD-WAN solution and versus other SD-WAN solutions?
So I guess the key here is I haven't seen formal documentation. I know from some customer conversations, they do see an increase when they utilize our local breakout, keeping in mind that part of that is the fact that we're getting to that closest front door. As far as can you configure a lot of this manually, the answer is to a degree, yes, you can, but it's something you have to maintain over time because, number one, you have to configure the local internet breakout. You've got to make sure that you're doing that securely. So in some cases, we have customers just breaking out Office 365 and backhauling the rest of the internet traffic. So we enable a lot of flexibility in how that is actually being done, as well as there's a process called a pack file, which is basically allows a constant update of what is that closest front door. Again, those can be manually updated, but it's an ongoing process. Microsoft's constantly changing those and updating those. So to do that is a very manual process is really the key. So the point here is with our API integration with Microsoft for Office 365, it simply makes it really easy and it's kind of a guaranteed ongoing efficiency that you're not having to go back and manually tweak it and tune it over time.
Yeah, and we've seen customers that have had a lot of success with the optimization through the API integration that we have, a lot of improvements so far. So I've seen customers have over 50% reduction in latency and things like that, as well as jitter and loss improvements. If my MPLS carrier is offering me SD-WAN, what should I do? Is Citrix SD-WAN different?
I actually come from a background of obviously large-scale integrations of networks and working with MPLS providers. So this is one of those sort of holistic concepts here is, do you want your MPLS provider truly managing your solution? Why or what are all the business goals to doing SD-WAN? If one of them is to give you what I'm going to return as freedom from the provider's ability to move your contracts around and have the freedom to bring in commodity circuits and not be held to minimum spends and things like that, then we see customers leaning towards self-service. If you want more of that, if you've got a good provider and you want to tie to that, you can do it. But I would say keep in mind what we've seen traditionally with a lot of the provider solutions is they're fairly limited in functionality, and they are sometimes challenged when it comes to working with other providers. Because if you're going to have one of the top tier providers working with a cable modem company and you're having issues troubleshooting, you really need to make sure they've got that right partnership to help work through the resolution if there's any challenges with the environment. So it is one of those. It is a lot of times based around the business needs and customer preference. But we are seeing a lot of providers begin to offer SD-WAN. It is, again, generally somewhat of a limited function quite often. But more than anything, it's that concept of really why are you doing it? Are you truly trying to break free of the providers, holding contracts over you? Again, you really don't get that freedom to break away from the providers or control that spend. So it really is one of those. It's really up to the business to make the decision how that would apply, but do take a look at the technology because, again, we generally see those are fairly limited function products.
So I want to just switch back to what we talked about in the poll question around managing the SD-WAN yourselves. So if a company is not sure about whether they want to do it themselves or not, what would you say to them about what our offerings can do for them and our managed services?
Again, we have relationships at all levels of managed services. So everything from we have some internal managed services that you can utilize, as well as we have partners that provide managed services to help you from everything from base level design, implementation to full scale deployment, ongoing management, troubleshooting. We even have partners that help with that whole circuit acquisition side. So when you're looking for what are the options to put connectivity into a single location, they'll go do all the research and give you the report back that says, there's AT&T, there's Verizon, there's Comcast, there's Time Warner. Here's your providers, here's your cost, and in some cases they'll actually do the centralized billing for you. So again, you could really figure out how you want to leverage that. But literally, we have service providers that can play at any and all levels, as simple as ongoing maintenance with you. If you want to do the deployment, they do the deployment. They do the truck rolls to the remote sites. It's extremely flexible is really what I would say as to how you want to roll it out with our service providers.
And they don't have to be through a carrier, right? It can be an independent partner. That doesn't
Correct. Actually, correct. Many of them are, I call it basically carrier agnostic.
Yeah. And so Ryan, how has your experience been since you went the do-it-yourself route? Is there anything that you would advise people on sort of which route to take and looking back on how your do-it-yourself experience was?
Sure, it was worthwhile. Nice rolling learning curve as we gained that experience, and sometimes that roller coaster was more exhilarating than others, but it was always safe. It never felt unmanaged, even though we were DIY, as you're calling it, and as much as Citrix support was always there. Now, what would I have done differently? I'll answer with some hyperbole from the webinar. Take my advice on not using it. Better planning, better network documentation. We had that, but it never hurts to just dig in and say, where is this routing actually going to happen? I want to understand some of what's really going on with this SD-WAN, and Citrix worked with us to make that labbing possible early on. So very much appreciate that.
Great. We have a question here on how robust are our monitoring and feature set on the SD-WAN offering. Do we have firewall and VPN functionality?
So the answer is yes. So the monitoring is very robust. You can get very granular down to the individual flows, how they are actually going across the network. You can look and see are packets duplicated, how is actual traffic being handled. So the monitoring is really good from the standpoint that we give you, I call it the red, green, yellow screen. Hey, everything's up and running and it looks good. But by the same token, the world isn't always good. And when you need to dig in and start figuring out where the performance issues are, the challenges you're having, again, we get a ton of tools around that particular aspect of it. And what was the other part of that question, Valerie?
The firewall VPN functionality.
Okay. So actually, if you look at SD-WAN as a technology, it really is based on the concept of overlay network. So we actually provide encryption end to end, but we actually do have the ability to bring, I'll call it kind of an off-net, just a standard IPsec VPN connectivity from another remote site. So we do have some customers that do that, that are in the process of rolling out SD-WAN in many cases, and they have a traditional site-to-site VPN, and they want to connect a few sites in. We have that capability. Keep in mind, when you do that, you lose the advanced granularity of the traffic control, but we do have the ability to do that site-to-site type of VPN over a basic IPsec if that's something that's needed. It's not something we really go out and publish as a thing we would sell the product for, but it does have that feature integrated.
All right, great. So if we're talking about really going over the internet, which is sort of best effort and obviously not secure, how does Citrix SD-WAN address this?
So part of what we talked about early on in the presentation was the whole packet-based technology, that constant feedback loop. If you look at the internet as a whole, the challenge with the internet is quite often there's congestion out in that big cloud we call the internet, and you get that random loss. And when you have that, we all know that causes applications to slow down, back off, loss impacts the actual application. So the challenge here is we talk about not over-congesting the link. So knowing that we have the available bandwidth. If you go buy a commodity bandwidth, you buy 100 megs of broadband from your cable company, we all know you're not going to get 100 megs. That's just, it is what it is. But you're going to get 80, you're going to get 90. So by knowing that real-time bandwidth, we simply never oversubscribe. Also, by making sure that we give priority to those critical applications, we'll back off on the less prioritized applications. So the end result is you really do begin to get a QoS-like behavior directly across the internet. So again, this gives you a really flexible way to do it, but it truly does deliver a MPLS almost like behavior when running across the internet, because we simply make sure we're never oversubscribing the internet from the standpoint of sending traffic to the wire headed outbound if there's not available bandwidth to receive it. So this is part of that real-time feedback loop I was talking about.
Great. And we have a question around, are we the only ones that can do the Office 365 breakout at this time?
Rather is no, but the truth of the matter is we definitely have the simplest workflow, and this is directly from Microsoft. The integration has been thoroughly vetted, and so the concept is that we make it very easy to integrate this. Again, a lot of the stuff can be done, but it's a very manual process, and you have to constantly monitor and track it. In our case, once it's set up, it is a bit of a set it and forget it. You know that if they bring on another point of presence that's closer, that as soon as that is available, it's going to be identified and handled locally. So it really is, you definitely can do that stuff manually with some of the other providers. But again, rookie is it's easy to integrate this from our perspective, and it's an ongoing evolution that's constantly maintained. You're not having to worry about going back and reworking, updating PACS files, worrying about there's a new location that just came online. So it really is an ease of integration from Microsoft from that perspective.
Yep, and I can tell you we are one of the first partners to be qualified by them independently, and that is going to be the big to-do at their customer event coming up in early November, which is called Ignite. So be sure to stay tuned for a lot of buzz around that at that time. All right, so last question, I think. If someone has enough bandwidth do they still need SD-WAN?
Yeah, my response is going to be yes. The key with SD-WAN is that you really are talking about your reliability, resiliency, and the end user experience. With MPLS, you can definitely go buy higher levels of committed to the car values. You can go buy higher values of guaranteed, which does give you a certain level of guarantee, but it still doesn't always address it. Quite often in the provider's networks, there's still challenges even within those guarantees. So you do still from time to time see issues. More importantly is really that ability to fail over between links, circuits in real time. That true end-to-end reliability. So from that perspective, I would say that you definitely need it. Again, it is going to deliver a top quality of reliability and resiliency, but it's also going to help address some of those basic application performance issues that traditional QoS really doesn't actually resolve.
Couple more questions. I apologize. Talking along. And, if you guys want to stay on and continue listening, we're going to talk about some quality of service and internet filtering. So glad to have you stay on. What other quality of service options are there, Howard? And can you prioritize VPN traffic? And what about separate guest networks?
So we'll kind of take this into a couple of and just carve it up here. So as far as the separate guest networks, absolutely we can parse out guest networks and a couple of different ways we can do it. Again, we have the onboard firewall, so you can create a separate VLAN for the guest network, handle it through the firewall, as well as we do support route domains. So if there's a broader scope to what you're doing with something like guest networks, we provide a lot of flexibility around that. Now the VPN traffic, trying to think how this would apply here. Specifically QoS around VPN traffic is going to look more like internet traffic. So we do provide the ability, and I loosely say shape internet traffic. Remember, if we're going across that entire link, we actually have a couple of buckets of traffic we monitor, one of which is obviously our path-based traffic, and then the other is the native internet. And so we give flexibility within both of those to share that bandwidth and figure out how you want it handled. So we give a lot of flexibility in that, as well as within there, obviously we can look into specific protocols to look at the specific protocol level and make the determination, again, if you want to do more granular level control within that. So we do give a lot of flexibility in how we're going to handle that.
So I know this is something that Dave at Northside talks about in terms of, and probably all healthcare companies are wanting this, but like when you have people waiting in the waiting room and you have guest Wi-Fi, you don't want them to go on any kind of horrible websites. How does SD-WAN address that internet filtering, and can it see if somebody is going on, or can we just prevent that altogether?
So directly on the product right now, we don't support internet filtering on the product, but we do have the partnerships with Zscaler and Symantec, so that if you want to handle sending that directly to them for one of their web filtering services, we partner with them. Again, very easy to set up. It's a couple of clicks and you're up and running, and you can utilize them. By the same token, what we see some customers doing is they will make the choice to backhaul specific internet traffic for that type of scrubbing through a service at their data center. So again, it really is a lot of flexibility on how you set it up, but as far as directly on the product, if you're doing local internet breakout, the product itself does not directly determine that, but we do have the partnerships with that. Now, if you choose to go down the source of a next-gen firewall as a virtual image, again, you pick up some additional features and functions on that.
And back to that VPN, just before we wrap up here, he meant VoIP traffic, which is actually more interesting. If you want to just really quickly wrap up with the VoIP prioritization and what we can do for the packet duplication.
Absolutely. So actually by default with the product, when you simply turn it up and you configure the links and everything comes up, voice over IP is set to be one of the priority real-time traffics. Over everything else by default. Also, we enable packet duplication across VoIP by default. Again, that can be turned off if need be. But we do give that ability to prioritize VoIP, and like I said, by default, the normal VoIP protocols are identified immediately. You don't have to do any configuration to make sure that they are getting the priority, and that comes down to everything from latency in the queues, being able to transmit quickly, not getting held up behind other transmissions. A lot of the typical things that I know in my past life you would tweak and tune on routers is very efficiently handled out of the gate with the product.
Okay, well, that's all the questions that we have. And thank you, Howard and Ryan, for being on and sharing your experience, Ryan. And we'll wrap up this webinar. Really appreciate your patience and attention. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you all.